Hi, I'm Vanessa and I love bad Star Trek. I will be your tour guide through the 3 Mile Island that is season 1 of Star Trek's Next Generation. Today I will talk to you about an episode called Hide and Q. This episode isn't concerned with silly things like a plot or dialogue that goes anywhere, pacing or conflict. Instead, it tries to manufacture depth an ethical quandary in an episode that could have been just screwball and fun. So tonally, it's written like The Room, which is entertaining, even memorable, but not for the reasons that the writers necessarily intended. Thankfully, no one is going to be humping a red dress because anybody is overcome with grief or playing football in formal wear, so that's a upside. This episode reintroduces the character known as Q, played by John Delancey. Q belongs to a race of beings known as the Q, who are gods in the truest sense. The Q have infinite power to do anything they want, anytime they want, even suspending time and place if they wish. The 3 O's of goddom: omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. John Delancey's character in particular is a trickster god who I think of as the Bugs Bunny of Trek. But aside from having infinite power, his charm lets him get away with being a condescending prankster. We first get to meet this character in the Next Generation series debut, Encounter at Farpoint, where Q put humanity itself on trial and forced Picard to litigate his way into justifying humanity's continued existence. So Hide and Q is a thinly veiled excuse to just play with this compelling character yet again. Sort of an Encounter at Farpoint part Electric Boogaloo, Revenge of the Sith. But this time, the stakes of Q's interference continue to change. But basically, Q tempts Riker with the opportunity to also be part of the Q continuum. Q, being a god, struggles with being straightforward about his intentions. And that really is the only thing that makes this episode as long as it is. It's not Riker struggling with this decision or the implications of being a Q. Should he continue his life as a human being or give up his commission and go do God stuff, unencumbered with pesky things like a physical body, time, or space? Listen, I'm just spitballing here. They tried to just transpose the story of the temptation of Christ onto Star Trek, but removed any consequences of giving in to the devil. To start with, the Enterprise D is en route to an important rescue mission when Q decides to drop in and puts up what looks like a Tholian web, again calling back to the original series. Then Q zaps some of the bridge crew off of the bridge and onto an anonymous planet to test them with a game. What are they being tested on? Q only says that the rules are unfair, the goal is to stay alive, and that Tasha randomly gets put into a penalty box for saying that Q had gone too far, and that anyone else caught breaking a rule would also be put into the penalty box. Since the penalty box only has one space, this would then cause Tasha to disappear into nothingness. But technically, if the only goal and rule is to stay alive, Tasha didn't deserve to be put in the penalty box. And Q threatening anyone with death makes no sense, since if the only goal is to stay alive, losing would mean dying anyway, or ceasing to exist. Whatever, man. Contrast this with Encounter at Farpoint, where it was clear what the stakes were, what Picard was meant to accomplish, and why Q's omnipotence made the stakes so urgent. The penalty box turns out to be the bridge of the Enterprise, and so Picard and Tasha have what I think is a really cringy moment.
When one is in the penalty box, tears are permitted.
Captain. Oh, if you weren't a captain.
Manufacturing unasked for chemistry between Picard and Tasha, especially since Tasha has up to this point been characterized as nothing more than the resident victim. It's especially problematic that she swoons at the slightest bit of comfort from a superior officer. Then Q comes in and then just waves his hand and says, oh, well, now Tasha's out of the penalty box, removing the stakes of this game. And then Q announces to Picard and Tasha that the real reason that he's hijacked the crew is to test Riker and to see if he's worthy of the powers of the Q. But what does that have to do with putting Geordi, Riker, Worf, Data on a planet with pig-faced people dressed up as revolutionary Frenchmen with laser muskets, while he dresses up as a French guy too? So after this so-called test, which was just the French pig people advancing slowly, no matter what the fuck Geordi says,
those soldiers are moving in fast, sir.
Q yells, like practically yells at Riker to use the power he just decided on a whim to give him to save everyone. So I guess he's decided he's worthy now. Oh, and the ship is then allowed to proceed to the rescue mission, course and time unchanged. So the urgency to wrap up the test and best Q so they could proceed with the rescue mission suddenly doesn't matter. It just doesn't make any sense. So with that being said, the less that one thinks about this episode, the more there is to enjoy. In fact, Q puts it best.
It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
So there's equal amounts of cringe and what is supposed to be witty repartee and Q villainously twisting his invisible mustache. One of the silliest components of this is Worf and the writers having a Pat Benatar level of understanding when it comes to Klingon culture. He is young. He is a warrior doing warrior shit.
Drop your weapons!
I'm afraid that was me, Worf.
Incredible, Worf. You came out of nowhere.
A warrior's reaction.
And when Riker makes manifest through his Q-given abilities Worf's deepest desire, he reminds us that love is a battlefield. My favorite part of this is the struggle for Worf to not have sex in front of the crew on the bridge. And his reasoning is not, oh my God, I'm at work and having sex in front of these people is really awkward. My boss is literally 2 feet away from me and Wesley is right there. It's something else.
But I have no place for it in my life now!
And of course, when Wesley gets his deepest desire, he turns into a broad-shouldered blonde man, which is supposed to be Wesley grown up, even if it clearly looks absolutely nothing like him. But real grown Wesley is way better looking, obviously. The cringiest piece of this is after Riker is gifted the powers of the Q, Riker makes a solemn promise to Picard to never use these powers, even though he fully saved everyone from the French pigs after Q randomly beamed them back down to the planet for some more French pig time, I guess, where Worf and Wesley take leave of their senses and barrel into bayonets, which then Riker fixes because he's God now. So he's already did the thing. And why would he promise not to use the Q powers again? Because it's just too damn tempting. French pigmen could be anywhere. So right after he makes this promise, the Enterprise makes it to their rescue mission, where they find a planet ravaged by catastrophe, and under some rubble, of course, is a dead kid. What discussion of ethics is complete without a dead kid in it? And Riker's like, nah, I won't save a kid. I promised.
I can't. I'm prevented from that by a promise.
which is like, why? Why not save a dead kid? They didn't even go for the she could grow up to be Hitler argument. Just imagine that you're the mom, probably like 5 feet away, overhearing this conversation where someone is talking about promising not to save their dead kid because of some bullshit. What's the point of keeping that promise, really? It just seemed like beating Q became way more important than doing something that could be useful, like saving dead kids. Early in the episode, Q decides to fuck with Picard's ability to write in his captain's log.
Captain's log. Captain's log.
That and Farpoint, which Picard and Q both recap in great detail at least twice in this episode. Just in case you didn't watch it, this just sent Picard over the edge. Maybe Picard and Q have some tension. Some would say sexual tension. Some might even write fan fiction about that tension under the hashtag Picard, spelling it with a Q. No, not that. Not that either. P-I-Q-A-R-D. Jesus Christ. So let's read some. Here's one about Picard being a sub. Q materialized the chair and sank down into it, still holding the leash and looking down at Picard like his pet at his feet. When he spoke, his tone was amused. You know, Jean-Luc, I never guessed you had such sordid fantasies about me. I suppose it's my own fault. I should have probed deeper into what passes for your psyche after that little contretemps with the Borg. But really, to imagine yourself naked and me with a riding crop, putting you through your paces like some sort of dressage moves as if you were a horse. What would dear William think of that? Or your darling Beverly? I think clearly Picard enjoys Q as much as Q likes people. And as soon as Picard works through and safely explores his kink for arguing with God, the crew would be better off for it. And they might save a dead kid, I don't know. Anyway, Riker fully decides to refuse Q's powers to Picard's delight. So Q goes bye-bye. Picard was like, if Riker says no, you have to leave us alone forever. Which, that's not gonna happen. So, this episode tries so hard to be deep and important, but it's just ridiculous. And so is the next episode, where we meet Troy's mother, a study in mothering with no boundaries. Luxana Troy. Till next time, I guess.